Yes! Finally, we get to see Avatar: The Last Airbender, the Netflix version, as a main full-length trailer. And though this series is somewhat still seeming like a bit of a 50-50 on whether it's going into genuine quality or just another Netflix blunder, I think there's a lot of things to see in this trailer that, for me at least, makes me very excited. We've been able to piece together all sorts of other details from just the teaser trailer and what they've mentioned, like the fact that they are making tweaks to the main story, showcasing things that we haven't seen in the original, such as what was quite shown clearly in the teaser trailer is the actual fire assault on the air nomads. And this time around, it just seems to be showing more of the plot. What a surprise. There are so many iconic areas and story beats you can recognize if you know this series, and I would be stunned if anybody doesn't at this point. You can see shots of Omashu with a flashback scene with Boomy also flying around in an air glider, and it looks absolutely gorgeous, so brilliantly recreating the city aesthetic in a 3D CGI live action format. And really, that's kind of the main seller of this trailer. It's just showcasing that, man, CGI's come a long way. We can do visual effects now. No longer do we have single tiny pebbles being flung down by 14 guys in a movie. Now earthbending can actually look like earthbending. And all the other elements come together brilliantly as well. The fire looks fantastic and is clearly going to be like one of the mainstays of how they do their choreography. The water looks great, at least I remember seeing it in the ocean physics and all that. And even the other fantastical elements of this world, beyond the locations and the magic system, Upper looks great. Momo is there, as much as we have kind of seen them before. Visually, I think it works in a lot of ways, and incorporates some nice sort of tropey elements that just fit the theme better. Having that Christopher Nolan bwam when Avatar Aang appears in the iceberg for the first time is great. Slightly different from being tripping and falling and waking up to the face of Katara, but you know, it's a change. It's dramatic, it's nice. That being said, I don't actually like every single shot in this trailer. There's a couple weird physicsy moments, as well as some like maybe naff 2 slow choreography. It's never going to be as slow as the movie that doesn't exist, of course, but there's a shot of Aang on his little air sphere ball whacking into a post, and like it doesn't have the momentum that I would hope it would have, and obviously in cartoon form it's always going to do better. You can play around with frames and all that good stuff. There's another shot I remember that I think didn't look too great. What was that? You know, I don't actually think it was the visuals. It was a little bit of the execution, the delivery. There's clearly a scene where Aang, and by the way, they actually mention his name. It's pronounced Aang. Wow, God, the standards are so low for this series. There's a shot, though, of Aang clearly teary-eyed talking about something or other, and the delivery of the line isn't as emotional as the face is portraying. I feel like it goes a little bit flat, and maybe it's just, you know, an awkward line out of that scene that's otherwise going to be really poignant and emotional and great, but a lot of the lines felt a little bit sort of flat, especially with Sokka's lines immediately afterwards. It's like, I hope it goes to be a little bit more expressive, even if it doesn't reach the territories of the cartoon expressiveness, since, you know, the medium of cartoons opens up for way more over-the-top expressionism. Similarly, there's not too much on the comedy front just yet. I think this is just meant to be the big, notable action, wow, look, we've got the visuals, come see the plot kind of trailer. But obviously, the Avatar cartoon was funny. It was really, really funny, especially like the character of Sokka, and I hope that they will bring more lines like that. Because, like, the one of Aang getting tripped and then being like, oh, look, our future hero, woohoo. The delivery's not great on that, or maybe it's just the line itself isn't that great, but we need time to let these people flourish, you know? Of course you do, it's only early days, it only comes out in one day less than a month. Now, another notable thing that they are very clearly going ham on as a notable change in this storyline is around the character of Fire Lord Ozai. Thank you for making it halfway through this video. If you'd like to see more movies and TV series trailers coverage, come subscribe. I'm going to cover as much as I can on the animated front, even though this doesn't count as animation, all throughout 2024. So press that button, hit that bell, and thank you for watching so far. On to the rest of it. Just before this trailer got announced, we got a Floating Heads poster of the whole series, and Ozai is bloody massive. I think there's something really to be said about how the cartoon version kept him in silhouette form for so long as this ominous future endgame final boss that kinda does get lost in this live action adaptation. Though at the same time, we do already know a Fire Lord Ozai, so I guess like the spoilers are gone? Is that the justification? Clearly as well, they're trying to bring in his storyline a little bit earlier. Azula will also be making an appearance if, you know, the casting, the storyline rumors, and the teaser trailer are to be believed. But I do think it's an interesting choice that I'm not 100% on board with yet. I think in general, I'm going to be quite open to a lot of these changes, and I'm sure the Ozai one I'll be fine with by the end of the day. But it is interesting to see what directions they do choose to take in certain areas. But clearly, a lot of the focus has been on staying pretty clear and true to the source material, extending out hopefully all the plot points enough that it's not just rushed over the whole time, and the visuals. The visuals are bloody fantastic. Beyond that as well, the actual, fantasy spiritual creatures of this world look absolutely brilliant. I think that'll actually be one of the more breathtaking visuals of this series. Forget CGI regions, we've seen them all the time. But seeing actual fantasy monsters that we've seen in 2D form brought to 3D life, it's just gonna be an amazing actual nostalgia blast feeling, I think. On the flip side of that though, one of those super best highlights of the cartoon's direction and animation is in its fight choreography. There are so many micro details you can find from any action sequence to unveil new elements of how these characters think and work. There's a very quick moment of Zuko firebending using a waterbending technique, showing how he's learning to incorporate other elements, and then he gets immediately kicked out of a window. Now there is one main choreography sequence that I'm referring to in this trailer for this next point, but some of it seems a little bit naff. Beyond the weird momentum of Aang crashing into that post earlier, the next shot of the blue spirit with the two scimitars and Aang jumping over him, it's clearly all meant to focus on Aang, and oh, well, actually, now that I'm looking at it again, I think actually maybe it's more of a nitpick. You can kind of see that the blue spirit is kind of just waiting in the pose for a tiny bit too long. Maybe it translates a little bit fine when you're actually in the blast of the action sequences. I thought it looked a little bit weird as oh, I'm gonna slowly get into pose now for the big moment. But I imagine this is gonna be also one of the major points that the show's gonna prioritize. Choreography is one of the best parts of the original saga, and they're gonna have all sorts of funding and incredible teams behind everything they do, so I'm sure it was just a nitpick. Maybe the occasional fight scene will look a little bit dodgy and weird, but the main stuff, ugh. I then also just generally like how the trailer formats itself very nicely, showcasing all four elements by the end, and then showing a little bit of, whoa, the Avatar state and everything. You know, just the perfect way to end off your trailer, but I think it is a brilliant preview into what there is to come next. You can clearly see that the visuals they're going for have been absolutely nailed, whilst at the same time they're making little tweaks and changes to the storyline that will probably pay off. The trailer, of course, wants to convince us that it will, but I'm willing to give it all the looks and chances to see that come to fruition. Any evil fire character looks amazing when they're actually blasting out their fire. Aang looks like an actual powerhouse whenever there's any kind of Avatar state-esque powers going on. All sorts of background sets and CGI locations look like brilliant homages to the source material, because it has to be. And hopefully from there, it's just a matter of the actors really pulling in their punches to have the greatest duo moments and emotional story beats to cover for their actual personalities. I'm looking forward to this. I'm more than happy to consume all the more Avatar content, whether it's incredibly great or incredibly terrible or somewhere in the middle. But I've got high hopes for this one. I mean, it certainly couldn't get any worse than 2010, now could it? But on that note, I'm going to end it off here. For now, my name's been Daz. You don't really care. Let me know your thoughts on this trailer. Am I the only one that's optimistic? I assume not, but maybe there's a serious, band of people criticizing any changes that are happening. I would genuinely be curious to hear if you've got any, reservations. What are you most worried about with this saga? But beyond all of that, I will see you in a little bit.